Okay, so first things first. If you notice the website folder, I made a little addition here that I think is really good. I made a folder called Design Files, and in that folder I'm putting all my Photoshop files and stuff. So if you end up with multiple files that are basically for the designing of your web page, I really recommend this because it just helps you kind of keep them all in one place. And I do actually like to keep my design files inside my website. I think I explained this to you guys before. When I use Dreamweaver, Dreamweaver does what it calls synchronizing. It synchronizes back and forth. So what I can do is if I work on this Photoshop, I can right-click in Dreamweaver and say synchronize, and it'll look at my server and it'll say which one's newer. Oh, you made some changes. Okay, so then it uploads, and then I can go home, and I open up Dreamweaver at home or on the laptop that Penfield gave me, and I can synchronize again, and then it says, oh, the version that's on the website is newer, and then it downloads it to the laptop, and then I'm done. So it's really kind of nice. It's a nice way to kind of keep your design files in a place that's always easily accessible, so you don't ever have to worry about flash drives or losing them or whatever. So I like that. So that just helps. So let's just go back. Let's go to. Let me go in here. Oh, I put a background in here already. Let's delete this. Delete these really quickly from earlier today. Okay. And save. And there we go. So this is the way our website looks at this point in time, right? Okay. You just have a plain white background. You have your 3 divisions. Okay, and everything's pretty simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually go and we're going to open up our design file here in Photoshop. So I'm just going to go Edit, Open with Photoshop. There it is. And in the design, I bet you, okay, yeah, in the design I have this just plain blue background. So now the important thing is how do you get the background into Dreamweaver? And it's actually really simple. In fact, there's many different ways of doing it, which almost makes it really hard for me to teach you. Now, the first way that's really easy is to actually just do it with all coding. So what you can do is you can double-click on the color chooser here for the foreground color. You can go in here and see how it's got the little tester. You guys remember that from Photoshop way back when? I'm going to click that, and then it's going to show me the color here. And then right down here, I don't know if you ever noticed what these were here, but it gives you that. Okay, that is your color code for the color that you have, and this is a way you can type this into HTML. Now, one of the things some of you also may notice is this only web color thing, and you notice that when I check that, the number of colors that I am able to choose from changes dramatically. Well, the reason for that is because the web really only has, I forget, 200 and some odd colors that are actually commonly shared between all computers. The web space is actually pretty small as far as colors are concerned. We're not going to worry about that really, but you'll notice that it changes my original. Oops, I canceled it. Didn't need to do that. But so if I go in here, it's 71882. So I can just go in there and I can copy that. So I hit Command C. And then we go into Dreamweaver, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up some more CSS here for what we call the body of our website, and I can just go background, and then there it is, background color, and then I can just hit Command V for paste, and that should give me, I think I need the pound sign though, pound, there we go, pound 71882. So now, when I go over here, voila, there's the color that pops up. Now, because this color isn't a web-safe color, then the problems that I'm going to have is depending upon the computer, this blue is now going to change back and forth. Sometimes it'll look like this, and sometimes it would look completely different depending upon the computer. So that's one of the problems of coding a color in here with the CSS like this, is that because it's not a web-safe color, and when I went to web-safe color it changed dramatically, maybe I didn't like what it was doing. You see, I mean, it really changes a lot. You can see here, you can see the before and the after, okay? It really kind of goes a little bit more greenish whereas this is a nice, it's got more magenta in it, more purpley blue. So if I really want to make sure that my background color is going to be exactly the way I want, what I really need to do is I need to make it a JPEG. I need to make this background an image, and I need to be able to load it into the background instead of a code. And it's actually really simple to do. Now, in Dreamweaver or in HTML, when you load a background into, or when you load an image into the background, okay, and the image is not as big as the browser, what does it do? Does anybody know what it does? Guess? It does a thing that we call tiling, okay?
I know.
You know what that is? What is that?
It's like, isn't it like where it doesn't like fit the screen, I'll put it.
Yeah, it puts bunches of them across.
Yeah.
So I downloaded a couple of tiled image. I downloaded an image here just for fun. Let's do this. So instead of background color here, I'm going to delete this, okay? And instead of background color, I'm going to hit dash background image, okay? Then I'm going to hit the colon, and it's going to allow me to browse. And in my images folder, I have a picture of Elvis. Yes, I do. Why? I don't know. There we go. Let's take a look at it in Safari, okay? So now, this is it's disturbing. Distracting, yes, thank you, because I wanted to make that point right off the bat. When back in the day, okay, I sound so old, but it was only 15 years ago, really, everybody did wallpaper backgrounds. They were horrendous. They were literally just awful. But before CSS came around, this was about all you could do was a wallpapered background. And so it was that or a coded background, pretty much, or a really huge JPEG. But the problem with that is if the JPEG is really too big, then it takes forever for the page to load. And honestly, a lot of times people will click the back button and they won't, they'll go on to another page. So yes, this is distracting. You never want your background images or image to take over, to be distracting or kitschy or cheesy or anything like that. I mean, a certain level of humor is okay. But in the end, really, it's just a background. And you don't want it to distract away from the product that you're selling or the information that you're trying to put on your web page or whatever. So a background is nice, but generally speaking, something like this is horrendous. However, we can use this whole property of tiling to our advantage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Photoshop here, and I'm just going to take a small slice of my background here. So I'm just going to draw a little square, just like that. And it is pretty small. If I go to my info here, 26 by 26, we can make it even smaller. The smaller, the faster it's going to load. So let's just do, say 15. 15 is good. 15 or 20, doesn't matter. Excuse me. So I'm just going to take this and I'm just going to double click. So now we have a little crop. Now this is a dangerous place that I'm in right now, because if I hit File Save, I've lost a ton of stuff. Right? Now you can get it back. So if you accidentally do that, call me over before you close the. If you close it, you're done. If you hit File Save, but if you don't close it, we can get it all back. What I'm really going to do is go Save As. Okay, and you got to be really careful because they're right next to each other. Save As. And then I'm going to go in, get out of the Design Files folder, go into the Images folder here, and I'm going to call it Background, okay? And I'm just going to call it Solid Color. So I already saved one earlier this morning for my other class, but that's good. And then I'm going to save it as a JPEG. JPEGs are great because JPEGs can be compressed, and since this is a small image, compression really is pointless because it's a solid color, so it doesn't really going to hurt the quality or anything like that. So I'm just going to hit, so it says background solid color.jpg, and I'm going to hit save. Yes, I want to replace it. Thank you very much. And I can go down to 4 or 5 with this again because the quality is really not that big of an issue. And you'll notice that even as I go down, the size doesn't really change. because it's a solid color. So the compression at 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 doesn't matter. You see the size is the same because there's no change. So, 8's good. So we'll click OK. So now we've got this little tiny square. Now before I go into Dreamweaver, I'm going to go step backward and get all my stuff back. OK. Now I'll go back into Dreamweaver. So instead of Elvis, let's change this background a little bit. And let's set it to, so I'm going to be lazy here and I'm going to highlight it like so. And I'm going to delete the colon. I'm going to hit colon again, and then that allows me to get to the Browse tab again, which is nice. And there's my solid color. Click Choose, okay, and Save. Now what's really cool is I now have my solid colored background. But what this is going to allow me to do, okay, what's really important about this, is now it's going to be within certain allowances, of course, the same for every computer, theoretically. Now, of course, you cannot control the quality of the monitor that people have. So some people's monitors will be really good. Other people's monitors will be horrible. Some people's monitors are just out of calibration. Obviously there will be changes from person to person when they view your website, but this is as good as you can get to making sure that it's the same if the color that you want is not a web-safe color. If the color that you want is a web-safe color, well then the code is probably the best way of doing it. However, again, you can't control the quality of the monitor of the person who's viewing your website, right? So you're kind of in the same position, same problem. But let's say we wanted to do something else. Now, actually, I've been putting this in this CSS here where it says body. What I want to do is I want to set it to HTML first and show you something. So you'll notice that there's no pound here next to HTML. This will still work. Oh, no, it won't. It has to be body. That's right. Forget that. It has to be body. There we go. The HTML, I don't think, can have a background image like this. Anyway, I'll have to double check on that, but we'll just keep it body. Now, let's just say we want to do something else. Let's just say we want to do a gradient. So let me go back into Photoshop here, and I'm going to take my background color here. Let's turn all these guys off so we can see what I'm trying to do. And I'm going to add a gradient overlay. Okay, here we go. And instead of white to black, let's just click here. And instead of white, I'm going to double click, and I want my, my foreground color, which I should be able to test right from there. There we go. And it goes from blue to black. So this is kind of cool. Click OK. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a slice. I'm going to take a little slice of this right here out of the middle from top to bottom. Okay, and how wide is that? 14 by 1,000 pixels. So 20 looks good. So there's 20. Double click, and now I'm going to do the same thing I did before. Save as, not save. Okay, and I'm going to get out of the design files, and I've of course already done this. So there is a gradient already. We'll just replace it. Background gradient.jpg. Change it to a JPEG. Undo the color profile. Click save. Yes, I want to repeat it. Thank you very much. Yep, that's good. Do it on high here because 8.9 is good because we want this change here. We want that to stay. So then I'm going to go step backwards, and let's go into Dreamweaver here. And now instead of our background solid color, again I'm going to be lazy. Let's add our gradient. Now when I first add it, it's going to look good. I'm going to change it to be emphatic here in just a second so that you can see something. But here's our gradient. And as soon as I do that, it looks good. Okay, it looks nice. Oops, I didn't save it. There we go, save. So that's kind of cool, and because it's tiling it. Now, but here's the problem. The only reason why this looks okay right now is because the monitor is really small. If somebody were to have a bigger monitor, okay, they would see the bottom of this image. So I'm going to go back in to Photoshop really quickly, and I'm going to edit our gradient image here and make it a little smaller so you guys can see the problem with what I've got right now. So I'm going to go to image size, and I'm just going to make this 500 pixels so we can just kind of see exactly the problem. So I'm going to save it, close it. Let's go back to Dreamweaver. Oh, see that problem? Let's see the problem we got. Refresh. Oh, so here's where it's tiling it, and it's going side to side to side to side to side. We have this little sliver that's 20 pixels wide, and it just repeating it this way. But then the problem is down at the bottom here, it starts all over again, doesn't it? Yeah, oops, okay. Now there's a couple ways of dealing with this, okay? And we're going to talk about one of them in another future demo on Thursday. But for today, let's talk about probably one of the better ones. Right now, I've got this blue faded to black. So what could I possibly do? Can somebody come up with an option to make this look good so that it fades into black and then say, let's say, stays black all the way down here at the bottom? Let me think of something. Probably not, because you guys don't know almost anything about the code. What's that? I could stretch it some more. That's actually going to be on Thursday. I'm going to show you how to set the size of an image to equal the div that it's in. That's possible. But here's another way. If you actually wanted it to fade out, okay, go into Dreamweaver, okay, and we can tell it to not repeat the image vertically. So if I sit here and I'm going to go in here, I'm just going to type, hit return, and I'm going to type, okay, background, and I love how it gives you all these options, background, repeat. Double click. Now if I say repeat in the Y only, if I say no repeat, there'll only be one. It'll just have that one image right there on the left hand corner. If I say repeat, then it's going to do exactly what it's doing here. It's going to tile. However, I can tell it, and these two are the ones that you use the most, I can tell it to repeat either in the X or the Y. So if I choose the Y coordinate, okay, see what it's going to do here in the preview, now it only repeats this way. This is your Y axis. So what I really wanted to do is I'll tell it to repeat only in the X. So I'm just going to go in there, and I'm going to change that Y to an X. Save, okay, and let's preview it. So now it looks, it's getting there. But what do we have to do? We now have to tell, what's that? We're to lengthen it. Well, no, what we need to do is think in layers. I need to tell the website or the browser that instead of white here for the rest of the background, it's going to be black. Okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to Dreamweaver, and this is where I'm going to add the HTML code. So there's also a CSS for just the rest of the page, and this is where you can add a background color. So I'm just going to go background color, choose color, and I'm going to choose black. See that? Boom. Save. And it's not working. Why not? Should be. Oh, see, oh, it's working here. So now you can see what ends up happening is there is this, it's fading from blue to black, and then where that JPEG ends, it now goes into black for the rest. And you can see up here, if you look, there's a margin around the body, which we're going to get rid of in just a second. That's actually going to, but we can see the black here, okay? That is the HTML background, and then the JPEG starts. So I can get rid of that little black border by just going in the Dreamweaver here, and under the body here, I'm just going to type margin 0 pixels. Just like that. Save it, and preview. Now you can see that everything is right up the top. It fades out to black and looks nice and easy. Okay. Now, there are other things where you can, you might want to tile something. Okay, and tile it regularly. So before I end this off here, I just wanted to show you a bad idea of tiling. I got a couple of images here. Let's take a look at these that were brick patterns. You can see I've got one here and I've got another one here. These two images may look very similar, but they are not equal as far as the quality of what I'm going to get. Okay, and you're going to see it. So let's go back into our HTML here, and I'm going to give myself a brick background. So I'm going to get rid of the repeat here, and I'm going to go in here into my background image, and we're going to delete the gradient as much as I like it. Now let's go and we'll turn our first brick pattern. Here we go. And save it. And let's go preview. Okay. That's pretty hideous, isn't it? Okay. And you can see why it's so bad. Because you can see how the bricks don't line up. Right? When the image starts to repeat horizontally as well as vertically, the bricks just don't line up. All I did was type brick pattern into Google, okay, and I started looking for patterns and textures. If, however, I go to Dreamweaver and I choose brick pattern, I think I named it as 2, brick pattern number 2, and hit save. Whoops, thought I wasn't in there. Hit 2, save, and now let's go back to Safari. You can see here on this image how it lines up. Now, you'll notice it's got this nasty watermark to it. That's because they want me to pay for it, and then I can get the image that doesn't. Why should you pay for it? Well, because some artist, some designer, spent I don't know how long figuring out how he can match up the edges on the sides and the bottoms so that when you repeat this, it becomes a pattern, and the one edge lines up with so the edge on the right lines up with the edge on the left, so every time it repeats, it just looks like it's flowing seamlessly. Now, some of you may go, well, okay, that's great, Mr. Weisbrod, okay, cool. But I don't understand why the bottom's still black, right? Well, that's because when we set it to when the body is set to the background here, it ends when the footer ends, because the body ends when the footer's done. I can change this very simply by getting rid of the HTML and going in here and saying HTML, comma, space, body. Now what this does is this makes the HTML and the body the same, and now it spreads it. So the HTML code in CSS goes from corner to corner. The body goes width to width usually, but then the body ends where the footer finishes, and you can see the footer's there. Now this background is also rather distracting, okay? So you better have some real strong, ideas for your, for your content and what you're going to do with it, because if you have a background like this is really distracting, very distracting. So you always want to be careful. The other alternative is to take this into Photoshop and to fade it out a little bit. Just put it on 2 layers, and you have like a white layer beneath it or a black layer beneath it, and you just adjust the opacity of the layers with the brick on it, and then you just save as a new JPEG and try and figure out if that works. That will fade out the the opacity of the bricks themselves, and that can create a nice texture. If you look at my website, okay, if we zoom in real carefully here, you can see that's essentially what I have right here. Is kind of like a canvas fabric kind of texture. But when I got it off the internet, there was too much. It was too dark. There was too much contrast. It's really distracting. And so what I did is I lightened it little by little. It took me like a week. I would do it and I'd let it sit for a day, and I'd go, man, it's still too dark, and I would keep going and until I finally got it. And then that was really kind of nice. I like that texture. The other practical thing, and I showed you guys this before, is that blending to black. That's what I did with this page here. The photograph stretches side to side, but the photograph ends here, and then it's just a black background for the rest of the thing. So there's ways that you can use what I've shown you to really, really help. If you want a photograph as a background, well, that's what we're going to deal with on Thursday, because that's a whole nother demonstration. But there's some really cool stuff that you can do with that. But it takes some prep, okay? I mean, a lot of prep. But you can do that. And I use a similar technique where I just had the photograph here, and then it ends, and then I set the background to black here, and I just made sure that this photograph was pure black at the bottom so that they match together. nice and simple, okay? So backgrounds are tough, and doing your background, that's going to dictate how you do a large portion of the rest of your website, so it's important to think about now.